So, good evening again. Let me share the screen where we are. So we are on chapter 1 of book 2 of the Spirit's book, right? So we went last week on the first item, which is the origin and nature of spirits. So we define spirits and we place them where in the creation. Talk about no beginning, about a beginning and no end. And today we are going to start with the normal primitive world, which is primitive not in the sense of backwards, but primitive in the sense of before anything else. Okay. So Philip, start for us.
Yep. 84. Do spirits make up a world that is separate from what we see? Yes, the world of spirits and incorporeal intelligences.
Okay, so here, what is this question and what is this answer and what is this whole item? Here we're talking not about that side of the creation that has intelligent principle and eventually becoming spirits, but we are talking about what is outside our physical world, the spiritual world, or the world of spirits, or incorporeal intelligence, as the spirits answer here, meaning they are not with a physical body, and they make a world that is separate from what we see. When we look around, we see most of us, except the seeing mediums, we see our fellow beings and we see matter, physical matter. There is a world of spirits that most of us do not see, but they are around us, is where we come from and where before our reincarnation, and where we will go back after the death of our physical bodies. Okay, so it's important here to separate what we studied last week when we talked about the true side of the creation, which is the intelligent principle that originates the spirit and the spiritual principle, and everything that derives from the universal fluid, which doesn't have intelligence and is composed by our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, and everything else, matter, dark matter, and everything else that we find outside God and spirits. Okay? Oh, good. Okay, next.
85. Which of the two, the spirit world or the physical one, is the principal one in the order of things? The spirit world. It is pre-existent to and survives everything else.
So what the spirits are telling us is that the spiritual world, the spirit world, is pre-existent to the physical world, or Earth, the planets, and everything that we see as matter in the universe, and survives everything else. Meaning, we know that the solar system, for instance, that the sun will extinguish itself one day, and the planets will cease to exist in some billion years. But the spirit world, or the world where spirits live, will continue to exist because it existed before and will continue to exist. Okay, it's an important concept that we have to separate here: the physical worlds that exist in the universe and the spirit world that exists besides what we know as the physical worlds. Okay,
Johnny.
Yeah.
I'm not challenging you, just asking a question. When I read this, my first thought is that the meaning is the spirit world is pre-existent to our earth, not everything in the universe or before the Big Bang. Do you have a view regarding that?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for us to reflect on this, because as we know from science, the universe was created with a Big Bang, right? But when we put the concept of a God being eternal, existed for all times, and spirits being created at all times, there has to be something before the Big Bang, right? So even before the known universe existed, the spirits are telling us that the spiritual world existed already. Again, I can't go further than that, because it becomes a little bit, challenging if we start to discuss what was there before the Big Bang, right? So,
or what there is outside the known universe, because no one
yes.
knows if there's nothing. What else exists, but it's not obvious to me. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's not to me also, but based on what the spirits tells us, if God is eternal, always existed, then there has to be something beyond the known universe or universes, right? That's as far as I can go, I think. And actually the next question deals a little bit with this.
Okay. 86. Could the physical world cease to exist or never have existed at all without affecting the essence of the spiritual world? Yes, they are independent of one another, and yet their correlation is continuous, for they ceaselessly react upon each other.
Yeah, so here, the spirits are telling us that the spiritual world and the physical world, and here, of course, Kardec was referring to Earth, but we can expand this to the whole universe, right? With the physical worlds that exist and the planets and the stars and everything. If they cease to exist or never existed at all, would this affect the spirit world? And the spirits say, in theory, no, they are independent of one another, but their correlation is continuously, for they ceaselessly react upon each other, meaning we need the physical world for reincarnations, as far as we know, at this level of our evolution until we reach perfection. So the physical worlds need to exist and will continue existing. Again, we can speculate on this universe, another universe, or another outside universe theories, but the concept here is that the spiritual world is independent of the physical world. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure, Paco.
Okay, so the spirit world does not come from the cosmic fluid.
It does.
It does?
Everything that is not spirits and not or spiritual principle comes from the universal fluid, including the spiritual world.
Oh, the spiritual world also comes from the cosmic fluid. Okay.
Yeah. So when you think about the spiritual colonies that we discuss on the books of André Luiz, right? And we think when we discuss the spirits connecting to each other in the spiritual world, they connect to each other through the perispirit, and the perispirit comes from the universal fluid, and the spiritual world, the buildings of nosso lar, let's say, they come from the universal fluid also. Of course, different modifications of the universal fluid, not the matter that we know here, but still everything comes from the spirit, from the cosmic fluid. Yes. Yes, Danny.
Thank you.
So we probably, sorry, I'm trying to lower my hand. When we talk about the book, the Genesis, right? It explains the evolution of the spirits on Earth. or in general? Look, I'm trying to understand that.
In general.
So the evolution that spirits go through from the basic, like the beginning, the basic principle, and it reaches out to what we are and beyond, that process can happen anywhere. It's not particularly to Earth's evolutionary process, like as a spiritual.
Yes.
To me.
Yeah, correct. According to the spirits, our first incarnation here on Earth was already as individual spirits and not in the primitive people that inhabited Earth. So we came here already being an individual spirit, already gone through the phase of spiritual principle somewhere else. We don't know where, somewhere else. So the spirits tell us that the whole population on Earth comes already, are spirits that did not have their first incarnation on Earth. Again, the vast majority. So came from other planets. We know from the book On the Way to the Light that we have many exiles from Capella here, right? That came in 4 different big groups: the Egyptians, the Aryans, the Hindus, and the Chinese. Well, not the Hindus, but in that region. I'm not saying that it's the people; it's the regions that they found themselves. And according to Emmanuel in On the Way to the Light, all those that reincarnated in Egypt already left Earth and went back to where they came from, Capella. And the others are the ones that stayed here. And, you know, we all, I don't know if we came from Capella, but we all came from, we are all aliens, as to say here on this planet, in the sense that we didn't have our first incarnation ever as an independent spirit was not on Earth.
We were at the Metropolitan Museum during the weekend, and we went to the Egyptian gallery, and I was telling Alexis a little bit the story of the Capella, the planet, and my daughter overheard and said, "Oh my God, are they all aliens?" Exactly what you said. It was funny.
Tell her we are all aliens. And yeah. Capella is a constellation. It's not a planet. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a constellation with several planets.
Yes. Okay.
87. Do spirits live in a specific restricted region in space? Spirits are everywhere, and they populate infinite space in infinite number. Imperceptible to humans, they are always beside you, observing and acting upon you, as they are one of the powers of nature and the instruments employed by God to accomplish God's designs. All spirits do not go everywhere, and there are regions that are restricted to those who are less advanced.
Okay, so this is the most important question of this subset, because here is when the spirits, this is something of course we know, but here is where the spirits bring to us the idea that the spirits live everywhere. They are found everywhere in space. And they are also next to us, observing us, acting upon us. And they are instruments employed by God to accomplish God's design. So this is a very ample definition of where the spirits that are not incarnated are. Of course, when we go more in detail, according to the evolution of the spirits, we are going to find them in different places according to their level of evolution. But the main concept here that is important to understand is that they are everywhere. So when they say here everywhere, means every planet is inhabited, every star is inhabited by spirits. again, not necessarily incarnated spirits. We know of planets that have only discarnated spirits. You think about the sun, you imagine that the sun will have spirits that are not incarnated according to our known laws, but they are everywhere. This is the important concept that we have to understand. And we are going to study a lot more from now on, how and where they are, and how and where, how they act, how they behave, why they find themselves someplace or another, why they find themselves close to us or in their own specific places in the spiritual world, in the different planes of existence that surrounds this planet. So some basic concepts, right? At our level of evolution, we incarnate on Earth, reincarnate on Earth several times. And when we go back to the spiritual world, we stay around Earth. We stay in the spiritual planes that surround Earth at our level of evolution. So the lower zones, the not solar type colonies that exist above all cities, all places, we don't move around unless there is a special necessity, need, or a reason to. So the vast majority of the spirits that are incarnated on Earth live around Earth when they are back in the spiritual world. Another information that the Spirit gives us, that the number of spirits discarnated that belong to planet Earth, so that live around planet Earth, is 3 times the number of incarnated spirits. So we have 8 billion here, we have 24 billion more or less spirits in the spiritual world around Earth, on this planet only. Okay, but again, estimate, and that's what the spirits tells us. Luis.
Okay, Eric has a question, but once you gave me the word.
Oh, okay.
30 seconds.
I didn't see.
It's on the chat. I don't want to be picky, but once we are studying, I believe we must be sober. In my personal opinion, we must be careful when reading the Spirit's book, not to read too much literally. The same way we cannot read literally everything in a number of other important books. It has to do with those 4 questions. And for instance, in my opinion, it's the Spirit's book is like when we are talking to children. If a child asks, is it true that rock is dry and water is wet? What you're going to answer? Yes, dear, rock is dry and water is wet. But we know there's humidity inside rocks, and depending on the rock, more or less humidity. And I believe, in my opinion, many of the things here have the same aspect, and we must understand that they are telling us like we are children. For instance, in my opinion, it's evident that the number of spirits is not infinite. It's probably very, 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 very large, but it's very difficult to find a countable thing that is infinite. But obviously, for every practical reason, we can consider it infinite. So it has to do with the universe, multiverse, etc. things. We must be careful. We all understand there are very, 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 very many, maybe not infinite, as well as other things that we read in the Spirit book. Sorry about this manifestation, but I had to.
You know, I think that when the Spirit says here that it's an infinite space and the spirits are an infinite number, as we consider that God is always creating, that we studied last week, right? Creating spirits are created at all times. So the number tend to infinite. Of course, there is no infinite number of spirits, because if we say infinite, meaning that it gives a different conception. But infinite in the sense that there is always creating, and there is always growing, and there is spirits, and every spirit that is created is immortal in the sense that is eternal, then, you know, I understand being picky on the word infinite here, but I think that it's difficult to find a different word to define. In numbers, I don't know.
My point is, in this whole book, and actually in the whole codification, my opinion, we are children being taught by adults. So we must be careful not to take too much out of a single world or a single construct. Personal opinion, and it's
Very
how
good. Very good.
And also what we need to understand here is that we are building the blocks from the very beginning, right? So this is the beginning of the book 2 of the Spirit book, when we are starting to understand what are spirits, where do they come from, and where they live. We are going to expand and discuss a lot more, and we are going to go deeper into more details. For instance, when we start discussing the different classes of spirits that start maybe next week or a couple of weeks, we cannot also be stick to the letter, because we know that the classification is theoretical and it's not real, right? But yes, point taken, and I think you're right. I think we have to. We cannot interpret literally anything, right? That's the problem with our brothers and sisters of some evangelical religions that think that you have to take the Bible literally, right? And that creates a lot of problems, right?
Very good. Very good.
But Eric had a question here. Could we extrapolate that there are many physical and non-physical worlds that are designed for spirits to experience different existence in order to evolve? Yes, definitely. Because when we study the evolution of the spirits, we can evolve faster than this planet and need to go to a more evolved planet to continue our learning, or the planet can evolve faster than us and we need to go to a less advanced planet, which is what we were mentioning when we talked about the exile from Capella that were thrown here on this planet, according to Emmanuel On the Way to the Light, because Capella was evolving to a level that they could no longer stay there, so they were brought here, and that's where you see the big jumps in advancement of human evolution and colonization in Egypt and other places, right? These are spirits that came more evolved intellectually, but not more evolved morally. And that's why they brought this knowledge that were able to help us progress. Again, until today, there is still not a clear understanding on how the pyramids were built. There are many good theories, but not a definitive answer. So it's a knowledge that they brought and they took away with them when they left. They went back to Capella. So yes, there are different worlds and for different experiences. And we have mentions of this in some of the books of André Luiz, and Emmanuel mentions this on the book Renunciation when he talks about Alcyone that was incarnated in a more evolved planet. Forgot the name of the planet now. And she came here to struggle on earth to help a loved one, a spirit that was very dear to her heart. A very beautiful book, Renunciation, beautiful romance. One of the romances of Emmanuel of his past incarnations here on earth. What was the name of the planets? Anyone? That Alcyone came from? Okay, I'll remember later. Okay. So any more questions here? This is an important concept, right? The spirits are all around us. That's very important because that's how we are going to understand later the actions of spirits on our daily lives. How do they influence our daily lives and how do they participate according to our, allowance or not allowance in our lives. Okay. No.
Form and ubiquity.
Let's go.
Form and ubiquity of spirits. Number 88. Do spirits have a fixed, limited, and unchanging form? For us, yes, but not for you. You can imagine them as a flame, gleam, or ethereal spark. Is this flame or spark colored? To you, it would vary between a dull gray and a brilliant ruby, depending on the degree of the spirit's purity. Geniuses are usually represented with a flame or star on their foreheads, an allegorical allusion to the essential nature of spirits. The flame or star is on the head because it is the center of intelligence.
Okay, so here we're talking about the spirits, not the perispirit, not the spiritual body, right? So what the spirits are telling us is that is as much as we can express with our words, is that they say that the spirits have a fixed, limited, and unchanging form for them, the more evolved spirits, but not for us incarnated here. So our ability to imagine them can only be as a flame, a gleam, or ethereal spark. And then they continue that the spark, the color of that flame or spark will be between a dull gray and a brilliant ruby, depending on the degree of the spirit's purity. Meaning, the more the spirits evolve, the more luminous it becomes. And we have read in André Luiz's books the coming of more evolved spirits and the light that they emit when they come. And it's interesting when on the book The Messengers, which is the second book of the collection, Life in the Spiritual World, when André Luiz and the mentor are traveling through the lower zones on their way to Earth, and they're passing an area that is dark, inferior. The mentor tells André Luiz so that they should dim their light so not to disturb the spirits that are there in that region they are going through. And it's very interesting because André Luiz is barely coming out of Nosso Lar, of having learned the basics of life in the spiritual world and the necessity of helping others, and that's the only way. But he already has some inner light that radiates, and that when he goes to the lower zones, he may have to dim it. So also, when we talk about our idea of angels here, why angels are represented with wings and with a halo around their head, that's an image that we bring from our visions of evolved spirits in our primitive understanding of the spiritual world, because these more evolved spirits, they irradiate a light that is more noted around the head, and that's the halo. And when they come, they bring all this light that we in our innocence expressed as wings, right? So that the representation of an angel with wings and a halo is just a more evolved spirit emitting the natural light of its evolution. Okay, so it's important to understand the concept of what Kardec was also trying to explain here, this flame of star in the head, because it's the center of intelligence. Of course, the light will be brighter around the head, right? Because that's where the intelligence and the more morality emanates, right? The more, again, the characteristic of a more evolved spirit is mainly the morality, right? The moral evolvement. The intellectual evolvement spirit can be very evolved intellectually and not very much morally. And then, you know, you have the leaders of the lower zones, the leaders of that conduct less evolved spirits, because they are more intelligent than others. Okay, Luis?
Sorry, Johnny. Could you kindly remind me if you have a word in English for the combination of spirit and perispirit?
When, according to the Spirit's book, when a spirit is incarnated, we call it a soul, right? Alma, it's the same in Portuguese. And when the spirit is in the spiritual world, the combination of the spirit and the perispirit is an errant spirit. There is no other definition. It's the same in Portuguese, espírito errante.
I understand that in Portuguese, we have a word for just the spark and another word for the spark with the spirit. But
what are the words in Portuguese? Just to refresh my memory.
Alma is the spirit alone, and spirit would be the spark with the perispirit. This is a spirit. We use it either way. This comes from the Spirit's book in Portuguese. So eventually I'll check.
Yeah, it's interesting because according to the definition of the Spirit's book, alma, soul, it's an incarnated spirit.
Okay.
We talk about this.
Maybe it's a translation thing. That's why I'm asking.
I read about this today in the IAD also. That's in Portuguese. So, but again, let's not enter into that here.
I'll try to get a reference, check the French.
It's in the introduction of the Spirit's book. It talks about soul being the incarnated spirit. And spirit or errant spirit when the spirit is in the spiritual world. We don't have a word for the spirit when it's only the spirit is connected. My understanding, okay?
Yeah, I gave a class on this a couple of years ago, and I'll get the reference there. Maybe I made a mistake. It happens.
I don't know. Actually, I was going to ask you because I saw that you mentioned yesterday on your class that English didn't have a word for that, and I was going to ask you how come it didn't. Because according to my understanding, and Elmo, correct me if I'm wrong, soul is an incarnated spirit according to Spiritism, right?
Yeah, that's right. We don't have a word for the spirit and the perispirit together. It's just a spirit without a physical body or soul when incarnate. We don't, and another thing, we speak here of spiritus, yes, and spirit is one thing, perispirit is another, but we don't really conceive one without the other also, right?
Yes.
I'm getting confused a little bit.
Okay, so let's try again.
You know that you said soul, the incarnated spirit, and errant spirit, the other one, the spirit and the errant soul. Now, you're telling me that there is a word in Portuguese that denotes the spirit itself, and in French?
No. As far as you found it?
No.
Okay.
Next class, I'll give you a position. I'll do some research.
Okay.
Maybe it's my mistake. I mean, it's me against everybody, so it's probably my mistake. But
Paco, so let's go again. Incarnated spirit, in Spiritism, soul, and we mentioned this in our classes. This is in Spiritism because you are going to find people that are outside Spiritism that call soul different things, right? You are going to find, I don't think I have time to find here. I was reading, but I won't be able to find now. But so what according to Spiritism, soul, incarnated spirit. Spirit living in the spiritual world, not incarnated. Errant spirit or spirit. because we don't need to call errant all the time.
Okay.
Or wandering spirit. Remember, we discussed that wandering spirit,
Yes.
which
yes,
is
yes.
it's even a more correct, but it's not used. Wandering spirit, right? So we use errant spirit. We talk about errant spirit.
Thank
So,
you. I thought I had missed something through my. Okay.
Yeah, no. That's what, as far as we understand here, as far as we discussed, the definitions. And again, our definitions that we define for us to better study and to be easier to understand what are we talking about when we discuss certain things, right? Because these are words that are used in Spiritism, and when you go outside Spiritism, you are going to see people talking about souls in different connotations. Okay.
By the way, you are correct. Question 134 precisely defines that. I don't know why I had the whole confusion. I apologize. Even in Portuguese, soul is the incarnated spirit, the discarnated spirit's called spirit. You were correct. I apologize.
Errant spirit. Yeah, but it's good because it gives an opportunity to stress so everybody is in the same page, right? Because the definition of soul in Spiritism is very different from the definition of soul outside Spiritism. You are going to find in the Catholic Church or in the evangelicals, you are going to find, even in the Hinduism, you're going to find definitions of soul that have nothing to do with our definition of soul. So I was looking here for if I could find where I found it, where I read this today, because it was interesting. That I was reading about the different definitions of soul according to other religions, but I won't be able to find. I found it in the EAD, Luis. I was reading there today. Okay.
That's a great reference. I go there many times to clear concepts.
Yeah, they expand all the concepts, and I was trying to. I went there because we're not going to get to the perispirit today, but I wanted to study a little more about the perispirit there because they have a very good chapter on the perispirit. If you're not going to read the 700 pages of Zalmino Zimmerman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So.
Hey, João.
Yes, Renato.
This question here, you said that you're talking only about the spirit, not the perispirit, right?
Yeah, because when you are going to talk about the perispirit, you are going to see the perispirit. You see the perispirit is a representation. Well, we are a copy of we in the spiritual world, right? So when you see when you see a spirit in the spiritual world, you see them in the human form. So here, the fixed, limited, and unchanging form, they're talking about the spirit, a flame, a gleam, or ethereal spark. Because you are going to see the perispirit, and we are going to study the perispirit next week. It's not exactly that, right? So here they're talking about the spirit itself, without the essence.
And then we consider a spirit when we achieve the stages of human life, right?
Yes, individuality. Yes.
Okay, and we also study that even the perfected spirits, they have a perispirit, right?
Yes, but we're going to talk about this next week because this is also very controversial. Still, there are still some even people that think that perfected spirits don't have a perispirit. But so I was studying a little bit today. It's not, there is no really a conclusive answer for that, but again, so far, we haven't found anywhere that that you have spirits without perispirit.
Yeah, that's
André
what,
Luis talks about different things on the perispirit, and again, the definitions of perispirit go wide, and we're not going to go there today because it's next week's study.
yeah, that's why I was wondering how can you have one without the other? But we'll talk next week then.
It's next week, sorry. I invite you all back next week for that.
89.
Yes, please.
Do spirits require time to travel through space? Yes, but their travel is as rapid as thought. Isn't thought the soul itself moving from one place to another? Wherever the thought is, the soul is with it, since it is the soul that thinks. Thought is an attribute.
Okay, so you see here, Luis, they use soul, and this is, they're talking about the spirit here. So it's complicated, right? But here we're talking about the thought. So the theory here is that we travel at the speed of thought. So we as spirits, when we are in the spiritual world, if we think of a place where we are immediately there. But that does not apply to all spirits, okay? Because for you to do that, you need to know the process and need to have the ability to do that. Again, André Luis always gives us very good examples in his books, right? So in the book, the second book that I just mentioned, The Messengers, André Luis comes with the mentors to the physical world, to Earth, to help and assist the type of work they always do. And 2/3 of the book is their journey from Nosso Lar to Earth, going through the lower zones, stopping at the spiritual house of assistance, doing some work there. And by the last third of the book is when they finally arrive on Earth. So if you could travel with the speed of thought, wouldn't André Luis think about his place that he wanted to be and he will be there? That's why it's not that simple, right? It depends on the evolution of the spirit. But the theory as an evolved spirit, and André Luis later, he talks about going from one place to the other, and he doesn't describe the journey. He talks about going to some place and he's there. So that gives us the understanding that he learns to travel with the speed of thought. As we study more about the spirits, we will understand more about the limitations. So you are there in the spiritual world. We know that the spirits cannot go above their level of the vibrational level. So André Luis with his mother, we know his mother lived in a more evolved plane of existence than Nosso Lar. He could think about where his mother was living, but he won't be able to be there because he doesn't have the spiritual evolvement to be there, right? So his mother comes to him in the speed of thought, but he cannot go to her in the speed of thought because of the limitations of his evolutionary level. Okay. Again, I know it's complex, it's a lot of moving parts here, but it's important to understand that in theory, we travel with the speed of our thoughts. In practical terms, not everybody, not all spirits, depends on their level of evolution. It's the same thing that we are going to see in a couple of questions about crossing through barriers, physical barriers, right? But we'll talk about it then. Okay?
Hey, João.
Yes, Renato.
Considering that spirits that know how to travel, let's put it that way. And since we're talking about spirits, that's not something physical. And we studied different ways that spirit can be at two places at the same time. What's the need of traveling?
We're going to talk about ubiquity, which is what you just asked about. That's the last question of this item. You know, you can, again, a president can give a speech on television for everybody. So why does he travel to places? Same thing,
So,
in theory, right?
that's physical, right?
Yeah, but you know, the spirit will need to want to go somewhere and goes with the speed of thought. It could the spirit irradiate, and we're going to see that, yes, but the presence of the spirit is important, and so, and it doesn't really take much from the spirit, right? If you think and you are there, then why not?
Thank you.
By the way, I know where I got the confusion. From the book, What is Spiritism? Has this book been translated to English?
Yes, yes. What is the Spiritism?
Yeah.
We study
That's
it.
what it says. It would be more exact to reserve the word soul to designate the intelligent principle, and the term spirit to the semi-material being formed by this principle and the fluidic body.
Okay.
Meaning, spirit should be one with the perispirit, the soul and the perispirit. But as one cannot conceive the intelligent principle isolated from matter, neither the perispirit being animated by the intelligence principle, the words soul and spirit are, in their use, indifferently used one for the other. Philosophically, it's essential to make the difference. This is where I got the wrong concept, because he uses the term spirit for both together.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting, not wrong, right? Because if it's there in what is Spiritism, right? It's just that in the Spirit's book, which we use as a basis, it talks about soul being the incarnated spirit, right?
At least I'm not crazy. That's good.
Yeah. So another question: travel at the speed of thought or thing, and the thought transport me immediately to the destination. I'm not sure I understood, Eric, but I think so. Yes, we think about a place and we are there as an evolved spirit. You know, it's we travel with the speed of thought, meaning we don't move ourselves. We think and we are there. And I don't know, he has something to you, Luis, there.
Yeah, he got me into this. If I can relate to this kind of travel with entanglement. Ericão, I'm not sure. In my view, entanglement, it's much more a submicroscopic phenomena that relates very separate particles in a speed faster than light. I think what's behind this is that we do not really know the nature of the universe, not even our own, visible universe. Let's not even talk about the dark, not the dark, not the word. I lost the word. The universe we don't see. So we are not even sure that this glass is actually here. So it's beyond, in my opinion, just beyond what we know to understand how those ethereal spirits can actually travel at what they call the speed of thought. Again, I think it's an adult telling to a child, hey, it's the speed of thought. You know, take that home and don't bother me anymore.
Yeah. Okay. The next question continues a little bit on this, right?
Number 90. When a spirit travels, is it conscious of the distance it travels and space it crosses, or is it suddenly transported to its desired destination? A spirit can travel either way. If it so wishes, it can be aware of the distance it travels, or it can completely disregard the sense of distance. This depends on the spirit's will and degree of purity.
So here the spirits go a little bit deeper in this idea and brings what I was talking about, right? Depends on the spirit's will and degree of purity if it can travel, without going through the distance per se, or it has to go aware of what is traveling. By what we see in André Luiz at his level of evolution, which is not much different than us, a little, of course, more evolved a little bit than us after all he went through, but he travels aware of the conscious of the traveling distances that he travels. But again, it's the concept that a spirit, a primitive spirit that lives, let's say, close to in a primitive world, it doesn't travel with their thoughts. They barely move outside the region they are used to live. So they go back to the spiritual world, and we read this in Evolution in Two Worlds by André Luiz. He talks about the primitive spirits that their time in the spiritual world is spent all in the same place where they used to live, because they are too scared and unaware of the possibility of moving beyond the place they are. So they come to a new reincarnation, staying in the same places that they are. So they cannot travel anything, and they cannot travel with the speed of thought because they don't really understand anything about that. So as we evolve more and we understand these concepts, again, the spirit's will and degree of purity allows us to change the way we cover distances in the spiritual world. Here we're talking about the spiritual world. Okay. Okay. Next, Philip.
91.
Hey, John.
Yes, Renato.
Just wondering, on the spiritual colonies, you have ways of transportation. Yeah, buses and whatever. Yeah, something like that.
Yes.
And in rescues missions as well, they have ways to transport spirits to other place. Yeah. But mostly we are talking about this traveling without any of those means. Is there a difference? Why they don't use that some sort of a machine, if you will, to go to different places, zones?
So there are several things here that we can discuss, right? When you talk about Nosular, right? First, why everybody's walking in Nosular if they don't need to? They can, the evolved spirits can move at the speed of thought, out of respect for those that cannot. So it is explained that they walk and they move about as everyone else there, out of respect, not to disturb the spirits that are there that don't know how to do it. The transportation that exists in Nosular, why do they need a transportation? Because the spirits that are there, they get tired, let's say, to move by themselves because they don't know yet, they don't have the ability to move faster. So they need transportation as an instrument of assistance in their progression. You don't see André Luiz talking about it in the rest of the books. When they go to the lower zones, they take with them the necessary apparatus that they need to rescue spirits that are in need of rescuing. So that includes methods of transportation for those spirits. Why? Because those spirits, they need to feel that they are being rescued and transported. Their very spirit is too dense for them to be transported in any other way. So they need to be transported in a less evolved or primitive way because of their very spiritual nature. Okay. When we talk about the book that I mentioned here many times, Voltaire, I came back, that is not translated into English. When brother Jacob, he's transported into the spiritual world after his discarnation, they are transported in groups, carried by more evolved spirits because they don't know how to move themselves. The same thing we see in the workers of life eternal, when they transport the 5 people that are going through the process of discarnation. They are transported by the more evolved spirits, carrying them through the spiritual world, through the passages. So again, it depends on the needs of the spirits that are there, the methods of transportation, and the needs of transportation. Okay?
Yeah.
Just let's do this next one because I want to finish that.
91. Does matter impede a spirit's movement? No. Spirits pass through everything. Air, earth, water, and even fire are all equally accessible to them.
Okay, we mentioned this quickly. I just want to go finish with this. Again, depends on the knowledge and understanding of the spirit. So why would you need, why would you have walls surrounding Nodo Solar? You have buildings in the middle of the lower zones, the transitory houses of assistance, if spirits can pass through everything? Well, because they cannot, right? We talk about our meetings in the Spirit Center, that there are guards outside the doors of a spirit center, spiritual guards protecting it from spirits that want to get in. Well, if the spirits can pass through everything, couldn't they get in? Again, depends on the understanding, the will, and the evolution of the spirit. So when you go back to the spiritual world, can you cross through walls? Theoretically, yes. In practical terms, you cannot, because you don't know how.
That's funny.
Yeah, and you know, it's complex to think about that, but actually, you know, as they say here, air, earth, water, fire, they do not prevent spirits from moving, but the spirits need to be evolved enough intellectually and morally to be able to pass through everything. So the spirits, there are some laws that are God's laws, natural laws, that prevent the spirits from doing whatever they want, right? So can they? Yes, they can. Like Elmo always say, can we all swim? Yes, we can. Do we all swim? No, some of us don't know how to swim. So theoretically, we can all swim. In practical terms, many people don't know how to swim. So just to make an analogy with the spirit going through solid objects and through things, right? So if the spirits are afraid of fire, they're not going to go through fire because they are afraid to get burned. Can spirits get burned? Not really. It's psychological, but they can be burned psychologically, and they are afraid of it. Okay. Okay. We went over a little bit. Any final questions here? We come back next week. We're going to talk about ubiquity, Renato, that we didn't, which is the last question of this item. And then we go to perispirit. We're going to discuss a lot about perispirit next week, which is the next item. Okay. So before we go to our final prayer, what do we have? We have something very important. This Sunday, we start a new book. And it's a great book called Liberation. It's a favorite of many. It's a book where André Luiz goes into the rescue of one of the leaders of the lower zones called Gregory, which is a former pope. And of course, the book is a lot more than that. And until we arrive at Gregory, we're going through many months. But and the first, I'm not sure if we're going to go to finish the introduction, to go beyond the introduction this Sunday, because the introduction is a beautiful story already that has a lot for us to discuss. But maybe we'll talk about the introduction and we start chapter 1. Liberation, you can find it on, of course, I'll share here the screen, but you can find it on our website. You can find it if you want to buy Kindle, you can find it on Kindle. It's the 6th book of the collection Life in the Spiritual World. And we started with Nosso many years ago. We just finished in the Greater World last month, or this month, beginning of this month. And now we're starting Liberation, which is a wonderful book. I highly recommend that you join us to study this Sunday at 11. Okay. On the talk we have this Saturday is by our friend Julio Carvalho from the Spirit Center in New Jersey called Divine Light. Many of you know him, right? He's an active participant on the Spiritist movement here in the Tri-State and the United States. He's going to talk about the source of happiness and unhappiness in the spiritual plane. We talked about happiness last week, a beautiful lecture by Susanna, and now he's going to talk again about happiness and unhappiness in the spiritual plane. And for next Saturday, Luis, I know you like him, we have Vicente Pessoa again talking about this, the doctor. Okay, so just a heads up. Can you do our final prayer, Carol?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, John. Infinite Creator, all goodness and grace, we are grateful to be together this evening to share our study of the Spirits book. We are studying the beginning chapter 1 about spirits. We have learned that spirits are everywhere, on every planet and every star generally. There are many physical and non-physical worlds, and we have learned that the word soul refers to those who are incarnated, and the word spirit generally resides in the spiritual world without a physical body. So we are grateful to go in greater detail within our studies, and we are grateful that we can be together to share this through Zoom and through the connectivity of our computers. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors, and the helpers and healers who have been with us this evening, guiding us, inspiring us, helping us to keep on point and to keep motivated to continue with our studies. We are grateful for what we have learned and what we are able to share together. As we go forward during the week, may we continue with our prayers and with our studies and with our mindfulness, being of service as we are able to do so, May we continue to receive the love and light and peace of Christ within us, and may we share this through our discernment with others who may be receptive. We are grateful for all we have received in terms of our blessings and our protection, and may we be guided to go forward this week. Again, we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we be of strong mind, strong heart, compassionate, and attentive to the needs of others. We humbly ask for safety and protection now as we go forth. May we remind ourselves to be beacons of light. Go forth now in peace, so be it.